You gotta just soak this one in. That's right. Get it. That's it. Keep it going.
Writing a feeling is written on the walls.
Love it.
Free me from living with these demons. Just another reason was written all along.
Again, one more time.
I can't seem to find my mind. I need some place to make some time.
Hey, can you say it? Tonight is another week. Just for tonight, another week has started. It's Monday. I'm going live over here from Studio B because we have session 5 of a very satisfying session of book club. Quite frankly, book club. It's session 5 of what is probably going to be 7. We had to add an extra week because it's too rich, it's too good, and we wanted to split up the last section of reading. So that's it. Tonight, 9 o'clock, I'll be going live right here, but we still have a full 2 hours together. And it is the debut of a new friend of the show. His name is Sean Chris, and he is not only a hip-hop artist from the Midwest, but he is a host of the Kill the Mockingbirds podcast. Talks all about a lot of stuff that we talk about. So we'll be jumping into like little excerpts from the latest self-immolator, the Manifesto. Everybody has a manifesto these days. And I gotta say, Friday is when all of the different angles, you know, him setting himself on fire outside the courthouse and stuff. That guy. I mean, I guess anything could be faked. That didn't look like it was fake, at least the ignition. But I did see all of the close-up images of him on the gurney as they're, you know, driving him away and whatever. And the close-up did look like he still had hair, which seems impossible. Then again, I haven't been around a lot of fresh burn victims. Still seems impossible. But what does it matter? What does it all matter? It's just these little shots across the bow, these little conditioning blows, and tonight I think I will be able to find some funny things and fun things, interesting things to talk about with Sean Chris. In the second half, when he departs, we'll take some calls from you, and I have a bunch of little things to sprinkle in. Tomorrow night, we are going to not have a full 2 hours, but close to it. Close to it, I think. As far as band practice goes, we still might do a Rude Tuesday. Still might, but there's so many different things, threads, topics of conversation that have been coming up lately that I need days. I need days to do them in, and tomorrow just might be the day. So anyway, let's jump into our grab bag. But before we do that real quick, thank you, Blue Monster Prep, and to all of our friends on the affiliates page on quitefrankly.tv. Unbelievable strategic partnership that we have struck up with Blue Monster Prep a few years ago, and it only gets more and more important. Go over there and just find little things. You want to budget little things, a little sleeve of non-perishable food here and there. Make sure that your go bag is packed full of everything that you need, from first aid to everybody has nice, communication. I don't know, they might have solar charged batteries. They might. I think I had already bought solar charged batteries and stuff like that prior to even meeting Pat and Gina. But go ahead and make sure that your go bag is good. And if your go bag is good, make sure that your fallback location is stocked full of everything you need. Go ahead. Do it. Do it. Do it. So there you have it. Okay, into the grab bag we go. Let's just keep this thing tight and snappy. Snappy indeed. Tight? I don't know. Here's a headline from the New York Post. Click it, Frank. There you go. Headline: Women are paying $500 to get salmon sperm injected into their vaginas to boost their sex lives. I know. I didn't warn you. I didn't warn you. We went in hard and fast tonight. Women are paying $500 to get salmon. I'll tell you, if you promise a liberal woman that you can invigorate their sex life, they will literally put anything inside of them. This is just like the people who go out and buy Gwyneth Paltrow's vagina candles. These women will try anything to improve their sex lives. Women are paying $500 to have salmon sperm injected into their vaginas. Can you imagine they get pregnant? To help their floundering sex lives. A lot of older women come to me and say that they're not having any kind of sexual arousal anymore. Amanda Azzopardi, an anesthetic nurse who runs clinics in London, Liverpool, and North Wales, told the Daily Mail. So we do the O shot, and they're reporting stronger and more frequent orgasms, increased natural lubrication, and greater sexual arousal. So there you go, ladies, I should say. There you go, ladies. Go ahead. Go ahead. You know you want to do it. So I don't. It just gets better and better, doesn't it?
It has begun. Vagina.
Too much. Too much all at once. All right, the next one. Now we're going from there to this is something that we have been keeping up on over the years, and that is sex toys. The dolls in particular. Because this is a big part of the transhumanist agenda. Big part. Because not only is it just odd and it is just nurturing in different types of deviant behavior, because it doesn't matter. You're having sex with a doll. You're having sex with a corpse. It's a corpse. Okay, very, very weird. But the other thing here, too, is because now there is constant reporting on this so-called loneliness epidemic, pandemic, you know that this is going to constantly become more and more of a thing that is suggested to people who otherwise, maybe in another timeline, would have more easily found themselves a companion or whatever the hell else. This could be a short second. I don't know. Early stage AI begins to make waves at China Sex Toy Expo. Among the rows of vibrators, rubber torso. Can you imagine going and buying a torso? And leather harnesses at a Chinese toy exhibition in Shanghai this weekend, the beginnings of AI-driven shift in the industry quietly pulsed. China manufactures around 70% of the world's toys. Most of the hardware on display at the fair, whether that be Technicolor, tentacled dildos, or hyper-realistic personalized silicone dolls. But smart... What are you doing in here? Excuse me. Daddy's talking about something very inappropriate.
I just wanted to come say hi.
Okay, hold on, real quick. Come here, sit in my lap.
Hi.
Oh.
Hi.
Tell everybody hello.
Hello.
Hey, was Daddy happy or mean or grouchy today?
Mean.
I was mean. Was I grouchy too?
Yep.
Okay. Was I grouchy and mean yesterday?
Nope.
No. What about the day before? Was I grouchy then?
No.
Am I going to be grouchy tomorrow?
Nope. Stop it. Now you're grouchy right now. And your turn to not talk to people anymore.
Okay, I'm not going to talk to anybody anymore.
But, you know,
Okay.
this morning you can talk to Tracy.
No, I didn't. I talked to Tracy on Friday mornings. Okay. All right, bowling ball head. Okay. So tell everybody goodbye. Have a good night.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Okay. Why are you being so sassy? Get out of here. Go. Mommy, grab her. Get out of here. Okay. She wasn't going to get the best of me this time. Wasn't going to get best of me. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, this crap out of China. Isn't it amazing that these expos are even allowed to be held in China? Just goes to show. Just goes to show. TikTok, they really want people all over the place. It's just nutty. Really is. What else do I have on that? I don't know. Oh, you know what? Hold on a second. And I will put this on the record. I don't know if it will be in my lifetime or just after, but this will have robot sex and people of robot persuasion. They will have their own letter in the LGBT acronym that continues to grow. There will be an R for robotics. No doubt about it. There will be robot rights campaigns, especially when more and more people buy them to abuse them, to just take out their aggression on something, because it's going to get worse and worse. And at some point, there's going to be a campaign to desegregate schools so that robot children can go to class with biologicals. Just put it on the, that's it. Vegas bets. I don't know what odds they're going to take, but you can just put it on the record. All right, what else we have here? Scientists push new paradigm of animal consciousness, saying that even insects may be sentient, and that is going to be an issue. You're telling me that a cricket is sentient, but a child a few days away from their delivery date is just shark bait? So that's going to be really interesting to see. That's going to be interesting to see people grapple with. Oh, isn't it amazing? The animal kingdom's amazing. But a baby is just a clump of cells until months after they're born. Just incredible. Just incredible. Next one. Speaking of, you have to watch this. You have to see this. Gavin Newsom in California released an abortion commercial that is something rather special. It really is. I guess he's trying to encourage abortion tourism, because that is that's really it now. It's just abortion tourism and euthanasia. That'll be the next thing in the U.S. Because nobody wants to get attacked by migrants on vacation, and nobody wants to catch some kind of a wasting disease or whatever. So they have this commercial where this Aryan girl, blonde hair, blue eyes, this Aryan girl is, I guess, trying to escape Alabama to seek reproductive care. So what does that mean? She's pregnant and she needs a baby destroyed. So she's in her car with a female companion, and they're trying to get out of the state of Alabama as fast as possible, because it's become like a prison state. And she won't be, because she won't be able to get reproductive care if she doesn't get out. And then as soon as they're about to cross state lines, the 5-0 shows up. And what happens next is nothing short of incredible. Okay, it's only 30 seconds long, so you have to watch this. Listen up. I'll let everybody know in podcast land what has happened afterwards.
We're almost there. You're gonna make it.
We're gonna make it. The baby's not. But the baby won't. Oh no.
Trump Republicans want to criminalize young Alabama women who travel for reproductive care.
Doesn't it sound like, the reproductive care, like they actually want to go address some kind of an issue they have with their fallopian tubes? Like they want to have children, there's something wrong. But reproductive care is that, everything is actually working just fine. It's just so crazy. Anyway, she got pulled over by the 5-0, and now let's see what the Trump Republicans are going to do to her.
Young Alabama women who travel for reproductive care.
Miss, I'm going to need you to step out of the vehicle, take a pregnancy test.
Stop them by taking...
So they're going to make her pee on a stick on the side of the road. And then here's how it ends. Here's how it ends. This killed me. This right here killed me.
Taking action at righttotravel.org. Campaign for Democracy group is responsible for the content...
That look at the end. I was dead. When she's getting thrown on the top of the hood of the car, getting arrested, and she looks up into the camera to make eye contact with you, like, stop this from happening. You could prevent this from happening. I died when she looked up. It's pure comedy. And the fact that somebody out there takes it seriously is kind of scary. Let's do that one more time, because it's very fun.
Stop them by taking action at righttotravel.org. Campaign for Democracy Group is responsible.
Look what's happened to me. Please help me. I'm telling you, liberalism is one big rape fantasy. It's one big rape fantasy. Incredible. So that there you go, Gavin Newsom. Your guess is as good as mine. We got to do something with that clip at the end. Her looking up. It has to be turned into a meme. That's very meme worthy. Very meme worthy. Gonna have to keep this aside. All right, before we get started, last issue that I want to bring up is on the Joe Biden cannibalism thing again. This is truly incredible. All right. First of all, this is from Modernity News, Steve Watson. Take a look at this. The headline is New Guinea academics say cannibals would be offended by Biden's tale of his uncle being eaten. All right. So he's now offended the cannibal community, or I should just say the cannibal community has been offended. Academics from Papua New Guinea say that the actual cannibals who live there would be extremely offended by Joe Biden's made-up story of his uncle being eaten by them during World War II. Take a listen to this, the quotes at the end. Michael Kabuni, a political science lecturer at the University of Papua New Guinea, explained that cannibalism was historically practiced by some communities only in very specific contexts, such as after the death of a revered community member. Kabuni noted that the native people only ever engaged in cannibalism as a sign of respect, and that locals, quote, just wouldn't eat any white man that fell from the sky. Taking it out of context and implying that your uncle jumps off of a plane or whatever, and somehow we think it's a good meal, is unacceptable, Kabuni urged. Alan Bird, the governor of Papua New Guinea's province of East Sepik, said he found Biden's story hilarious and was lost for words. I think everything about this is hilarious. The fact that we actually have some kind of a comment from the cannibal lobby, if you want to say that, or somebody that represents cannibal interests, or wants to know just how sacred and selective it was. You only get eaten if people like you over there. That's the funny part. We wouldn't eat this guy. We don't even know him. Oh, I'm telling you, they got standards. They really do. So, but that's not the end of it. This is a little bit of a addressing of the issue by what's her name, Karine Jean-Pierre, over at the White House. My God. You want to talk about someone who works overtime? If you can say whatever you want about this administration, she works the hardest. Absolutely does. To get up there every day and try to spin things, everything. Isn't it amazing that everything is taken wrong and she has the right answer for it and everything? There's not one point to be conceded ever. Isn't that just incredible? Like, that defies all laws of probability, right? It should, at least. Anyway, she's getting a question from, I think, Peter Ducey. Take a listen to this.
I agree. Second Lieutenant Ambrose J. Finnegan was a war hero, but the Pentagon says, for unknown reasons, the plane was forced to ditch in the ocean. Both engines failed at low altitude. Why is President Biden saying he was shot down? There's no evidence of that. And why is he saying that his uncle was eaten by cannibals? That is a bad way to go.
He lost his life. It's not, look, I'm not, we should not make jokes about
It's
this.
not.
Wait.
President Biden said that his uncle was eaten by cannibals.
I mean,
No, listen, we should not pay. We can't. We shouldn't make a joke out of it. I mean, he's asking a question. There was no joke made. I know it seems like it's a joke. It's actually kind of funny that she responded that way, because he asked a very serious question about very serious claims that were made. And the fact that she said, let's not joke about this just because he asked about it. Do you say, oh, well, he's being jokey. Why is he being jokey? Because the whole damn thing is ridiculous and he dared, I don't know. No. He takes this very seriously. The Bidens, they have believed that their uncle was eaten by cannibals for years. It's as part of their identity at this point. We should respect that. Let's just leave them this story, okay? Don't joke about this. Let them, they believe that their uncle was eaten by cannibals. Does it really matter if his plane crashed into the ocean or if he was shot down and eaten by savages? What difference does it make? It's just, what a job she has. What a job. It's seriously impressive. Anyway, let's get this one kicked off. We have Sean Chris on with us, and that'll be a fun time. So I hope you're there to join us. BRB.
Oh, I've got one. There's a Mexican, a Jew, and a colored guy go into a bar. The bartender looks up and says, "Get the fuck out of here."
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's ride!
Everybody. That's right. Walk, don't run. Walk. Walk, ladies and gentlemen. Don't run, please. All right, so that is the opening, and we are here to introduce a new friend of the show. Gonna have a good time tonight. He is not only a hip-hop artist, he's got some new stuff coming out, or is already out. We're gonna listen to that later on in the second half, but he is the host of the Kill the Mockingbirds podcast. And you know what? The subject matter is something that I think a lot of us can relate to on a day-to-day basis because we do a lot of it on this show, which is why I think this is going to go by in a flash. Sean Chris, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great.
You feeling good?
Always. I'm always feeling good. You know, you have to.
Yeah. Oh, well, what other kind of, we have no options anymore. It's just, which I think is the best part about how we are living today. It's either you leave yourself in the filthy hands of those who are giving us this ridiculous logic-defying movie that we just get caught up in. The plot makes no sense. You know, we're getting overcharged for it, especially here in tax month. And or we can just break back, find some good humor in things, and think about ways to be proactive.
I totally agree. That's what I try to do every day, man. I'm just like, man, I go to work, you know, I just started a new job about a month and a half ago, and I see everybody miserable already. And I'm like, man, you don't have to be miserable. I get it. We're coming here because we want to get some money, but that's your perspective on it. Like if you change it and you're like, ah, man, just here to get money. If they let me go, they let me go. Just don't invest in these things. Just use that as the catalyst to get what you need to get where you're going. But the reason you're so frustrated is because you don't know where you want to go. You know what I mean? That's the main thing.
Are you the guy? So you said you started there, what, about a month ago at a new job?
Yeah, about a month and a half ago.
So are you already the guy, the almost like the bishop of the crew who tries to, have you gotten through to any of the people there? Have you found any like-minded fellow travelers, or are you a little bit more of the black sheep?
No, I think people are more perceptive. I'm actually like anywhere I go, man, I attract people. Like always one or two is gonna hate me. Usually it's because other people enjoy my conversations, but I just kind of a man of the people. I've always been that way. So I go in there, everybody knows my name. I know their names. I talk to them. I'll say that it seems nowadays a lot more people are open to the ideas that we talk about, whether it be crazy to paranormal or to like just the political sphere. Like they're just like, yeah, they all suck. It's like pretty easy to say like, hey, everybody's corrupt. And they're like, yep, man, yeah, that's not a lie. That's not even conspiracy anymore.
Dude, you know what? That's the whole thing. I would have to say is that there is like I don't know. There's a lot more there in paranormal now than there is anything else. Like I subscribe to the whole idea of parapolitical. Just understanding that within these political spheres there are arrangements, there are things there are hidden agendas behind everything, and sometimes those agendas actually do cross over and overlap with truly spiritual endeavors, dark and light alike. So it's crazy how you don't even need to be mutually exclusive paranormal podcasts anymore. I think the world is getting so much more easily defined in that genre, just as it is, and it almost like mixes everything together. It's I don't know. It's a bittersweet tasting cake. That's what I'd say.
Well, there's even there's echo chambers and all those things too, though. Where everybody's like puts their walls up and they're like, nope, a UFO is this. Nope, Bigfoot is this. So there is even these same like-minded people. Like they might have a different subject matter than being like, oh, hey, is it red team, blue team? It might not be that level of it, but they're still like, no, Bigfoot is only a real creature. He can't be an interdimensional being. Or like people are like, oh, it has to be that he is from another dimension. It has to be from a lab created. Whatever they believe, they're not open to being wrong. A lot of people, unfortunately, I'm wrong all the time, so I have no problem with being wrong. And I think that's part of the issue we get into with how the world's becoming is people are so think their opinion's so important, man. Like, I mean, look at us. I mean, I guess I do too, because I be talking, but like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't feel like the arrogance or speaking in absolutes of I have everything. I have nothing figured out. I think it's all interesting. I think we have a great time in life where we can excel and gather people, like you said, like-minded like us, and kind of push them forward with us so we can have a bigger scale. Because for the longest time, when I was 18 years old talking about 9/11, hey, look at loose change. Hey man, 3,000 people died, man. Show some respect. You're like, all right, man. I'm just.
We've all heard that one. We've all heard that one. Hey, did you see? What was it? It was earlier on. Hold on, I have to have it up over here. I think it was over the weekend. A lot of weird stuff happened over the weekend, including the Daily Wire's continued descent into the seventh circle of might as well be mainstream media hell at this point. Jeremy Boring said this. He's one of the co-founders of Daily Wire on yesterday. He said, people who deny the moon landing or suggest America is evil for its use of atomic weapons against Japan, or who say that George Bush was behind 9/11 actually hate this country. Think about that statement.
Wow.
Hey, I mean, there's
that you brought the moon landing, because I saw earlier in a group chat I'm in on Instagram, someone posted about the moon landing. They were talking about it. And I've been talking about people for the last 5 years, and I don't mention it to them, but so many people believing that the moon landing is not real, like way more than think it's real, at least in I would say the late, like Gen X and down, they heavily don't believe in it. So I think that's like one of the most like out there conspiracies. Like, yeah, I know the establishment doesn't believe it, and like there's those, the talking heads, but when you talk to the people, they're like, oh yeah, of course we didn't go up there.
It's almost like a foregone conclusion. And
yeah.
It's one of those things where I remain unconvinced. As far as 1969, as far as what everybody saw on television, that's one thing that I wouldn't be surprised one way or another if we got a pre-produced presentation to limit the any kind of failure or to be able to conceal other things that were already up there. I don't know. I'm open to those things as well, but like you said, there are a lot of people who are just their roots are set down, and when you get into the alternative side of things, especially alternative history and hidden history, all that, it is not uncommon to find yourself in the middle of a circular firing squad. It's not uncommon at all. You think that, oh, well, this is going to be a place where all things are possible, and you can throw an idea out there, and it'll start a lively debate among people who just enjoy inquisitive and inquiring minds. No, there are no inquiring minds. You better have it all figured out, or else you're just some kind of a noob fuck who gets lopped off from the herd. It's just one of those things sometimes.
It is very interesting, and they've came for me a lot, the flat Earth community, which I actually love, man. I have a lot of friends. I'm not a flat earther myself, but I've got into quite different, I would say, disagreements with them. And man, they'll come for you, man. And like I have friends, and they're like convinced. I can't have any thought on it, and I'm like, I don't know. My basis of those kind of questions are like, I don't know, man. Like, but if you keep saying the same parroted thing that I heard like 50 people say or thousands of people say online, I'm not going to be interested in it. Now, if you come up with your own original thoughts on it, like I'm like, oh wow, I've never thought of that. I'm going to be open to it. I want to hear it, but I want to hear Dave Weiss. And you just hear everybody reciting Dave Weiss, and I get it that he's a huge researcher in that, but I'm like, it just doesn't sound like an organic thought from you. If it's like when I hear the BLM stuff where people talk about mass and like, oh, safe and effective. Like, yeah, I could say safe and effective too. Doesn't mean that it is. You know what I mean? I think people get caught up in their echo chamber and they're like, no, you got to listen. And they don't even realize they're repeating the same thing that everybody says. Plus, I think that we're in this weird paradigm right now that with social media, people leaked it over after 2020, right? We've been arguing with each other. So people were so used to arguing with people that if you disagree with them, they take it as you're coming for them or trying to one up them or show off. So it becomes this internet in the real world. That's how people are interacting with people that I've noticed. They get so frustrated. Like if I'm like, yeah, I don't know if it's flat earth, and they're all, oh, you idiot. You probably also believe that the voting's right, and like they go with everything. You're like, you don't even know my whole thought process. I'm just saying I don't see this one thing that you see. And I was willing to listen to your whole story about it, but you're cut off because they're so used to you're my enemy. If you do not agree with me, you're my enemy.
Yeah, well, I definitely see that kind of behavior expressed all over the place. And I know that you were just using the shape of the earth as an example, because that's one thing that I'm interested in listening to as well. I've always said, when it comes to that particular thing, I wouldn't be able to prove one way or another what the hell the shape or the size of the earth is. But when it comes to things that I'm not sure on, I do prefer to sit down and listen to dialectics between people that are on opposite sides of an issue. Because I can sit down and listen to since we're on the subject, flat Earth presentation where it's just one side being presented the entire time, and I'll go, wow, okay, there's something to it here. Then I'll listen to the other side, and I go, oh, I think that they win. Well, but when really I want to see swords clash a little bit in a peaceful way, because I don't know, that helps my thinking. Regardless of what the issue is, I want to see swords clash, and I think that is really great for the viewing audience, because of course there's, like you said, there's always going to be people out there who've already made up their mind. But there is whenever we talk about an election, for instance, we always come down to the reds, the blues, and then of course that coveted other third of people who just don't know and can go either way, and that is what people are always fighting for. They're always trying to persuade, and I like to be persuaded, and sometimes there's just not enough out there, so I come up with my own theories, and that could be just as wrong as anything else. Who knows? But let me ask you this. When we're talking about modifying behavior, we're talking about the way people express themselves when they find out or they figure out the way the world is. Just on Friday, we had this guy in New York City that lit himself on fire. And of course, like so many of the people who go out there and do something crazy, or so many other people that we are presented with that have gone out there and done something allegedly crazy, there tends to be some sort of a manifesto these days. And this one has been chopped up a little bit, talked about, because in its own right, it has little, he's nowhere near as profound and smart as Ted Kaczynski, for example. But he's got some things in this manifesto that I highlighted because I want to hear what you say about it. So this is from the Ponzi Papers. First thing he starts off with is cryptocurrency. He says, cryptocurrency is our first planetary multi-trillion-dollar Ponzi scheme. It was expressly created for this purpose by a laundry list of rich, powerful people out of Stanford, Silicon Valley, and Harvard and Facebook. Then he goes on, says, since it is fully parasitic, a secret kleptocracy is an incredibly unstable form of government, talking about how our form of government is just about people. Doesn't matter what colored tie they wear. they're stealing from us. Hey, I mean, that is even more relevant after this weekend, where we saw yet another $60 billion plus squirreled away to another, money laundry in Eastern Europe, while everybody in Congress is waving a foreign flag. I wanted to throw up all over myself when I saw it. But so right off the bat, he's coming after digital currency and diagnosing or recategorizing our government as a kleptocracy. And we'll go into a couple other things after that, but I want to get your opinion on just these 2 points alone.
Well, I did think that how he just pretty much was like, yeah, like there's that sign. I read like his manifesto as well, and like he has a picture of some of the stuff where he's talking, and I mean not talking, but he has a sign and he's like, Biden and Trump, they're the same. And then I'm like, man, that's like coming after people like me that are always like talking about the parties being the same. I think that he's onto something. The cryptocurrency, the thing that got with me is I was thinking, is he talking about a lot of this digital currency? Because I've been afraid myself to get into cryptocurrency, because I was like, okay, I know as soon as we get into a coin, whether it's Bitcoin, name the coin, Dogecoin, whatever, that they're just going to default it and let it fall, and in place of the CBDC. So I don't know. That's where I kind of got with it. But this Ponzi scheme thing was interesting to me, that with the banks falling, and does it line up with the whole Great Reset narrative of the World Economic Forum?
I mean, there is a lot out there. I have friends who live by it, and they have just been encouraging people to look into it and diversify however they want, however they can. And then there are those who just are so jaded by everything, they think everything is a trap. I can see everything. At the same time, I'm into more physical assets, and I like the idea of, stacking a little bit of silver, but at the same time, how much are you going to stack? And then what happens? I mean, if the world really goes and shit hits the fan, what are you going to carry around a 300-pound sack of coins? How it's not that very mobile, so it's just, you need a little bit of everything. And it's, maybe I just play the observation game a little bit too much. That'll definitely keep you out off the court and not playing the game. But, the digital just worries me. But he goes on to say something else here. He goes from recategorizing the government, and he goes into, of course, the changing hands of as far as how we see money and use money. But then he goes and he spends a lot of time on The Simpsons, the cartoon. As it turns out, dozens of writers of The Simpsons went to Harvard. So I asked myself the question, if The Simpsons served an interest of organized crime, how would they do so? And of course, dysfunctional families, it's showing moral decay and suffering, community incapable of solving its problems, dunce leaders, all that stuff. He says, and so we realize the criminal truth of The Simpsons. Our elites are telling us that our eroding collective circumstances are our own fault, and we can't do anything about it. While they steal the American dream from us, it is, for lack of a more elegant word, brainwashing. Now, people have said The Simpsons are a prime example of predictive programming, revelation of the method, and all that stuff. But do you think that it was that important to the plan? Maybe for a while it was one of the biggest players out there, everybody watching it, but certainly isn't that prominent right now.
Now, is this also a callback, for that crowd, that Q crowd, to kind of like, hey, see, that's what we were talking about. He also mentions Epstein, the whole Simpson stuff, which we know is like everywhere in the conspiracy community. And it could be, right? Like the occultic people believe you have to be, that they have to tell us what's going on. And they say they do it through predictive programming, which, I mean, there's a lot of evidence that I don't know if it's them showing us, or is it like us manifesting it? Is it that we see it? Like there's many angles we could go with. I just found it interesting. The things that he picked at were like aligned with the Q crowd. And I'm a big believer in the Cass Sunstein theory, cognitive infiltration. I don't know if you've heard of that.
No, go ahead.
It's basically like where he wrote this paper. Cass Sunstein, he was in the Obama administration, but he was also, ironically enough, at Harvard, a law professor, and he wrote this thing called cognitive infiltration, where he talked about the importance of infiltrating conspiracy groups, whether in person or online, especially those of 9/11 inside that think it's an inside job. And this was back in 2008. And I've had this rolling theory for a while, like a lot of the stuff, like out there stuff, not saying that there isn't paranormal things or spiritual things that are happening, but when you go with like Mandela effects, or you go with the Donald Marshall cloning, you go with the Q, all these things that were fabricated, because he talks about in the paper that not only infiltrate these groups, but false lead them, right? Like make them look like buffoons and add real stuff with fake things to like really make it unrecognizable. And even in the paper, he admits that some conspiracies actually turn out to be true, but it's troublesome for the government. And I just think that after that time, there was so many of these events that blew up. Flat Earth blew up. Not saying that these things can't exist, and they did exist before, but the way they just exploded onto the scene, it really makes me feel like, hey, this is how they're controlling us. People like Cass Sunstein, he also wrote a book called Nudge Theory, where, you know, you don't tell the person what to do. It's similar like what happens with the CCP and the social credit score. People implement it themselves. You don't go, hey, this is how you incentivize. Hey, if you're good, you get this, and that. That's like when you have cameras on every corner. They're like, hey, if you're not doing anything wrong, what's the big deal? And that's when you roll these things out and you nudge people into the direction you want them to go.
Well, that person, I don't know I don't think it was a James O'Keefe expose, or if it was somebody else. I think somebody else went undercover, and they sat down with a guy that worked with CIA, FBI, and he was talking about how they made a mark out of Alex Jones, and they wanted his money, and they wanted to, you know, stifle whatever. They're just talking about how he was targeted. He actually used the word nudge. When the undercover reporter said that sounds a lot like entrapment, they're like, we call it a nudge, and it's true there too. I mean, it's brought up so many times now too. You know, going back, I know you talk a lot about Mockingbird, but Mockingbird was launched in the 50s, and its first real huge mainstream public assignment was managing the JFK assassination. And you know, inside of that, of course, was the coining of the phrase conspiracy theorist and attaching all those terrible connotations to it, you know, making you seem like you're a paranoid, delusional freak and all that stuff. But you know, aside from that, giving the press and giving, you know, the blue pilled out there a cudgel to beat critical thinkers over the head with. And yes, anybody can take a thought too far and really make themselves look foolish. Absolutely. But, you know, they're given that nudge. And they also are given a nudge by the CIA making investments into the counter theories, you know, going out there and making sure that there was some of their own out there debunking JFK in some credible ways and some sensational ways, so that you just flood the marketplace with all types of stuff, so that, you know, it's just like you really don't have that much of an opportunity to discern what's up and down. And you just default back to the official story, and you just stick with the authoritative sources.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And then with the JFK, it's always interesting to me. I don't know if you ever saw this one documentary where they kind of angle it that the assassination was an accident, where the Secret Service member that was behind in the car behind him may have been the one that shot him. When Oswald shot and it rang out, that the ricochet made a noise and kind of startled them, and then boom, when they braked. It's just really interesting, man. And he blew off the top of the president. I don't know if that would be, but I would be like, that just seems so likely, because like it would be something stupid, wouldn't it?
Well, no, not the guys behind. First of all, not the guys behind him. I mean, we all saw the direction that Jack's head, you know, blew back at. It would never come from somebody from behind. That's why it's so ridiculous that Oswald can do all that with one shot, aside from the fact that he went forward first, grabbing his neck from the first shot. So we can see it, that there's at least two shots caught on camera, and both of them came from at least the front. And I don't know. It's ridiculous. I heard
multiple eyewitnesses that, like, I mean, it's the same thing with the Vegas thing, you know, the concert, you know, it's tough, because I'm like, how could, if it was one person, two people that are like coming out and saying, but it's like, how could so many people have this false memory? And I think that's why I'm so big on what Cass Sunstein was doing. And when you think of the Mandela effect, I think this is where we question our realities. This is where we started living on two timelines, right? Now we're talking about the JFK, and where we're like, hey, I saw this, I saw that. But then it became, no, it had to be this magic bullet. No, it had to be 7 people. No, it had to be the mob. And then we just started, like, instead of coming together and be like, hey, here's a piece of the information I have, here's a piece of the information, everybody like was like, no, I'm right, and this is how it happened. And I think they, like you said, they coined that conspiracy term to alienate us, and then we started fighting amongst each other because it's human nature. Like, oh, I want to be the gatekeeper of all this knowledge, you know, I'm going to break it down for everybody.
Yeah, yeah, and like you said, the fact that there are some people out there that had in the past, at least, openly accepted things like the magic bullet theory, where you have a bullet that's essentially making a U-turn. It's just one of those things that. But you said something there. You alluded to brainwashing and to mind control and everything else. Now, obviously, what this guy, I'm just going to hold on. Here's his conclusion. Where the hell was it? That we're in a totalitarian death cult, doomsday cult, all well and good. Now, the fact that he went out there and killed himself for everybody to see doesn't really give him a lot of credence. Some people will say, well, he's making cogent points, but then again, he did light himself on fire. But it all comes back down to brainwashing. And I was doing a little something on, it was on for last Wednesday. Last Wednesday, we were talking about the work from one Dr. Michael Nels that took 2020 and the COVID lockdowns and everything that went along with it into frame and spoke of how the overwhelming of people's senses at that point, it was such a sensory overload that it actually triggered in a mass way where you can go one-on-one with somebody in a bunker somewhere and completely brainwash them through the trauma of the lockdowns, the fear, the constant media hype, the doctors coming on board. It was just going to be the end of the world, that there was such an injection of new information and new, realignment narratives that was being installed in people that they were completely forgetting in many ways and have forgotten a lot of the way life was, including just completely missing old memories of the world prior to 2020, which I think Michael Nels said something along the lines of, if this was intentional, it would amount to the most evil thing ever done. And I completely agree with that. Now, I also read, the reason why I bring this up is today I was reading a little something, a Substack that came my way that was written by Naomi Wolf. And it was from April 17th. It's called Letter from Brooklyn, April 2024. And she actually brings up Dr. Michael Nels about this. And what is all really about is her observations when she was walking through Brooklyn and Manhattan and seeing all the strange things, all the behaviors that people are exhibiting these days. And there's some things in here I'd like to bring up at some point along the way, but I guess I'll just throw it back to you and saying, in the last 4 years, what have you noticed in people where there is a big split between the personas that everybody adopts in digital atmospheres like social media, and then of course the way that they now interact out in the open air? Is there much change to the way you remember things out in the Midwest?
And originally I'm from California too, so I've been out in the Midwest for about 10 years. So I've kind of seen a big difference, and it is from 2020, but I think it started before then. I think when they started pushing not just the social media, but when these politics really seeped over into the people of where, hey, I could hate you because you voted for such and such. Like, people disagreed a lot, but when it became this polarized, you're the bad guys, we're the good guys, we're saving everything, completely not like, hey, you just don't do it right, but that's why we want to vote for this guy. It became, hey, you're enemy number one. And when Trump got in there, and that's when I kind of stepped back in watching politics and even kind of covering, well, I didn't even cover conspiracy at the time, but I wasn't even watching anything conspiratorial. I just felt like defeated. And I think it's this animosity that people built, which I think started on these online personas. And I think 2020 amplified that, because being locked down for a couple months, people not going to work, maybe spending too much time with their significant other that they weren't used to, and they didn't really know these people. They were just living these lives. And I think that their online persona became their real world persona. And I think that's what we're living through right now. And people are like so invested in whatever social group they're in. So this identity they have online, all their friends believe the same thing they do. So that also stops them from critically thinking on ideas, because then they will be shunned from their friend groups. And it's this endless circle.
It is, and you put into words a very big part of what was brought up by Michael Nels, and it's actually in this article over here. Hold on, let me bring it up. Let's see, Dr. Naomi Wolf. She says autistic reactions are being normalized, and listen to a little bit of this. I've written in my essay, "Are lipid nanoparticles subtly changing human beings?" About the fact that certain shots are designed to cross the blood-brain barrier, and thus they can cause, as Dr. Chris Flowers of the War Room had put it, brain damage, as well as causing neurological damage. But German neurobiologist Dr. Michael Nels, who we just talked about on Wednesday, in his important book, The Indoctrinated Brain, How to Successfully Fend Off the Global Attack on Your Mental Freedom, explains that the damage to the brain from the shots, the lockdowns, the isolation, and the propaganda can be physical as well as psychological. And I see a whole bunch of things here, man, because I feel like there's, in a certain way, people's personalities have changed, even if they are very, very much the same person, but there is a hesitancy. There is a walking on eggshells kind of mentality for some people, whereas other people are just completely bull in a china shop, reckless. It's a strange things that I've noticed, and I would love for people to call in later on in the second half to talk about things that they have noticed too. But so what do you think about that? That from that sandwiched of those sandwiched elements there, the isolation, the propaganda, but of course there is a chemical aspect too.
And as well as decades of propaganda, because even though that this propaganda now that about the thing we all know about, you know what I mean, that like got us all locked down and worried up. And you're right, that's the best way. I liked how you said that. It's like they were filled with anxiety. Now they're filled with anxiety, full of fear, like I have to do this or I don't have enough time, worried about everything. Or they're just like reckless, just like going through life like, who cares, man? I think it's this weird thing that I constantly see. I'm actually going to start reading this book about end times, because humans are fascinated by it. Like they write about it all the time. Like since the beginning of time, they've wanted it to be the end times. And I think that when we get this mass propaganda, when we see things that we've never seen before, like whether it be a 9/11 or locked in your homes, or this mysterious thing that's killing everybody, even though we don't see people flooded in the streets, but those first videos really caught on to people. And it's like when you see bad news and the bad news gets, or not like say if I was guilty, right? Like they're like, hey, this Sean Chris committed murder or he's attempted murder, blah, blah, blah. That would be huge headlines everywhere, right? But when I got, oh no, it turns out he didn't do it. Like it's going to be small headlines and it's going to be third page, ninth page of the newspaper and no one's going to pay attention to it. I feel like that's where we're at, is everybody's amped up of all that stuff that happened in 2020 and they can't read anything that's new. That's like, hey, look, we proved it right. Like I remember telling people like, hey, the PCR test probably sucks, man. Like there's this guy, Kerry Mullis, man, and he says like it doesn't work. And then they're like, oh, was he on YouTube or something? And I was like,
Yeah.
well, he won a Nobel Peace Prize for inventing the test. So I would think that he would know what he's talking about. But hey, yeah, he was on YouTube. Like
He don't know shit.
yeah. It's on YouTube, bro. Like, and I'm like, you do know they teach like college courses on YouTube and they use all these streaming platforms.
Hey.
Like it doesn't matter.
hey, you know that a bird and a papaya fruit out in Africa tested positive with the PCR test, and then afterwards the what was it? The president from Ghana, was it? It was Ghana. Well, I forgot what it was. He ended up dead a couple of months later.
Mm-hmm. And kids were getting off school by dipping it in orange juice, man. They were dipping it in orange juice. Oh, can't go to school for 2 weeks. Like, it's just these obvious things that we saw happening. But because this polarization, which had started with Trump, like it had been brewing for a little bit, because I remember growing up and the liberals were like the more cooler ones because they were like more easier to talk to about 9/11 or the military industrial complex, or like, hey, politicians are corrupt. And all conservatives at that time were like, no, we have to like, we have to get groped up at by TSA so we could get on a plane. It's for your safety, man. You don't know 3,000 people died. And when you try to explain to them, like, yeah, I agree that 3,000 people died, but don't you really want to know why? They were closed off to it. And then this swing happened when we got Obama, and people were like, yeah, it's all his fault, which don't get me wrong, the dude's just as bad as all of them, dropped the most bombs ever ever in the existence of the military. But he was the other side to the coin, and then they got Trump. So you fully got that polarization of these characters that are leading us into this destruction that of not humanity necessarily, but at least of our country. And that's why what he is saying does strike a chord with me, because I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like it's what they say, two wings, same bird, like that same old saying. That's what he was trying to allude to. But then I'm kind of also on the skeptical side, because I'm like, you burned yourself alive, bro. Like, not just that's crazy, but it's like, well, couldn't you have done something else? Couldn't you have, like, if you were gonna like burn yourself alive, couldn't you have took something with you that all of us would be like, yeah, like, you know what I mean? Like some kind of rally cry, like, and rest in peace to him. He probably thought that was the best idea. It just gets a little psyopy for me, but then it's like, what is real anymore? Like we were talking about earlier, like I'm just like, I don't know what's real. I could see that there could be a psychological operation at play. The only thing that I see that could be is that they're reigniting that Q crowd again. That's the only thing, because he did everything except say pizza. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, well, I mean, I see what you're saying with that, because it did get into that area, though it didn't go. Did it? Maybe I missed it. Did he actually go into Q?
No, it was surface level. I'm just talking about, like, the whole Simpson thing. It's like this mainstream, like you could tell, like it just felt like he watched a bunch of TikTok videos of conspiracies and not really doing any research or like thorough, like, when you talk to people that have like, oh man,
Yeah.
I've been studying about the moon, the fake moon landing for decades, and they have all this stuff to show you. And he was talking about like Peter Thielen. That's it, man. Like he didn't name any other names really. He kind of like, besides the Simpsons. And I'm like, bro, the Simpsons, that may be right, but there is bigger players than the people at the Simpsons writing the show. And I think that there's even bigger things to contribute to the downfall of society. Because if we want to talk about, we could talk about Good Times and All in the Family and all these other sitcoms that could really kicked off this sitcom era of watching another family on TV and trying to like dictate what you should do around the table with your kids. Like, this is what we talk about, this is how we interact with our kids. You could go to the Cosbys and so on and so forth. I just thought it was strange that he stuck with the Simpsons, but that may be just like, generational, right? Like he might not be going fully and thinking of everything, but I just thought the cryptocurrency, where like XPR, or was that what it was?
XRP.
XRP, my bad. That was the huge thing, and that was part of the Q community. That a lot of people believe that was going to be the savior. That was going to be this Nesra or whatever. I'm not saying it is. It's just when I'm spitballing off the top of my head, I'm just saying the possibilities of things that it makes me think of.
It became obvious that there was an opportunity. There was an opportunity being seized to consolidate every meaningful question that should be asked and investigated, especially the people involved and what it means to the average citizen of any country. Because obviously we're talking about a global operation when you talk about global governance, which is not even a taboo thing anymore. I mean, you got these WEF people that get together every couple of months, and they're literally calling it their global government summit. I mean, and what they are talking about is everything that people said was crazy. It's not even that you don't even have to get into spiritual aspects. We're talking about a conglomerate of corporate, supranational corporate interests that are looking to create go-arounds and manual overrides for national sovereignty to create global policies on everything from energy consumption to new economies and supposedly to turn down the thermostat on the entire fucking planet. It's just incredible how they'll take people's, rightfully so, when nobody's paying attention, somebody's going to be screaming, yo, look, and it might look frantic, but now it's just so I don't know, every day it's just so I don't know, regular, almost mundane to hear someone like Klaus Schwab out there talking about what they need to do as far as chipping everybody and how the new AI technology is going to become a life partner for everybody who has it installed in their brains and all that stuff. But they say it in these very nice and sophisticated foreign accents, and everybody else at home who was once trying to get people to listen to this stuff when they were pamphleteering at flea markets, now they're just like, you're taking what he's saying too literally. It's like, no, I've been telling you what they've been saying before they actually came out with it. So
when they weren't saying it out loud.
Right. So when you talk about something like what Q has become at least now to the media, it's a catch-all for anything that pushes back against where we are in this timeline, especially to 2030 and everything else. It's a catch-all for making
conspiracy term, like you said, like this. It's from the 60s. It's rebranded. It's like people for a long time too. Like if you would say, even now you'll hear someone say that, like, what are you, Alex Jones? Like if you say anything that's against the narrative, you're Alex Jones automatically. And I think they try to get, and you just kind of gave me a thought too, that maybe part of this is to make us be insane or make people
no
seem
doubt,
insane
no doubt,
so that they can continuously build these facilities. Because there's like this, I think it was California had Prop 1, and they were trying to build even more mental health facilities, and mental health has been everywhere. And when we look at all these mass shootings, it's always behind with these kids that are on SSRIs and they're having these problems, and they're, in that trans community quite a bit. And I also, like, I was going to say a little shameless plug on, you could go to killthemockingbirds.com, disinformation section, and you could see that there's a study on the NIH where they talk about elevated rates of autism and the link to transgenderism and gender dysphoria. So I think that the idea of whether it be gender dysphoria or whether it be anxiety or whether it be all these things that we're going to die, the end of the world, waving this flag, I think it's to drive us insane so the people like us that are going to push back can be called insane and put into, not right away or anything, I'm just saying the possibility of it, to be put in these facilities because we're labeled like this guy, like, hey, he might set himself on fire. He also doesn't agree that the government's good. You know what I mean? But everybody else like that is going to follow along will be like, yeah, just, take your pills, follow the AI, as long as what the AI tells you to do. Because I personally don't think AI is that strong. It's just that people, it's not that it's sentient. It's just that people will follow it if they're told to. And I think that's where they're coaching us. They want to call people like me and you that are having rational, logical discussions about things that we should question as crazy. And then maybe there will be legislation to put us into these places.
Yeah, well, I mean, insanity is definitely a part of it. And you're talking about that autism, those autism stats. That's something that's actually been out for quite a bit circulating, and it is a significant thing to pay attention to, because really, again, when you think about it, you say, wow, you're taking advantage. You're taking advantage of people who are already so impressionable and vulnerable, and it just makes perfect sense. It really does. So that never ends. They're always looking for new ways to throw that out. And I have more on this in the second half. We're going to jump over. It's 8:00 right now. Sean, do you mind if I put you on mute real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be on the other side of the intermission in just a couple of seconds. You can go and join us at quitefrankly.tv, powered by Foxhole and pilled.net. And that pilled.net link is out there as well. It's in the description of all these episodes. And you can always click through when you're on quitefrankly.tv if you'd like, but it's all right there. You go to quitefrankly.tv, you click play, and you're watching the second half of the show. There's nothing standing in your way, no paywall, none of that stuff. I got Chris over here, Chris over here with me for the second half, at least for a portion of the second half. Then we're going to listen to some of his music and then your calls, because there's so much more from this blog I want to do with you guys in a little bit, and it's going to require all of your observations from wherever you are, be it urban, rural, suburban. So head on over, because you can watch this in its entirety on demand in just about an hour or so, but there's nothing like live. We'll be right back, and I'll see you over there.
The rest of the show is available exclusively at pilled.net. Follow the link in the description of the episode, get signed up, it's that easy. Or or head on over to quitefrankly.tv. Just press play. No paywalls, no censorship, no strings attached. So head on over, quitefrankly.tv, powered by Foxhole and pilled.net.
It's intermission time, folks. Time out to press the like button. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome to intermission.
We'll be right back.
Yeah, intermission. Yeah, intermission.
You are now entering, quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Watch Quite Frankly and stuff.